This Auburn team needs a mentality shift fast, and man, I hope it's not too late.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. What are you doing?
Drinking.
So loud.
Oh, was it really? I thought you had me muted.
All right, here we go. Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zach Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Earlier this week, I hopped on with my buddy Ben Taylor of Auburn Opelika this morning. We talked about how the culture needs to change quickly. That conversation right here.
Zach, we have gotten to the point where, I don't know, what is the word? We're in purgatory right now as far as an Auburn football team is concerned. And the reason being is because it could go really south, or it could be an uplifting into the season that could take you into the following season with a lot of talented freshmen coming in, as well as a lot of talented sophomores that are already on the program. However,
sure,
right now, this team, when you mention identity, it seemed like this weekend was playing not to lose. It seems like other weekends were playing not to turn the ball over. And at some point, do we just say, hey, man, just let loose. Just go have fun.
Yeah, let's go out there and sling it. Yeah, you mentioned like it could get better or worse. And it is kind of amazing that it could get worse despite, this terrible run that Auburn's been on. And we can call it bad luck, but when it's bad luck over and over and over again, I think you got to look at the common denominator, and that's something on the Auburn sideline that has to get fixed. Payton Thorne spoke with our friends at the next round Tuesday morning for his weekly thing, and he talked about how, it kind of felt like there was some feeling on the sideline when you're up 17-3 and you just felt it slipping away and you couldn't do anything about it. And that's when, as a quarterback or as an upperclassman or as a leader, or, it doesn't even have to be him. It could be anybody. They step up and say, we've got to hold on to this lead. And I don't know if Auburn has that from an upperclassman right now. And I think that's kind of a larger issue when we really look at it.
And in fairness to him, he took a little bit of responsibility. He said, I put the ball on the ground at one point in time where I shouldn't have, and I've got to secure that. I secure that ball. Who knows if we keep moving down the field a little bit, or at least get a first down, but he did top that off where he added a little positive spin to it. And he said, but our defense did their job and we won the turnover battle, 2 turnovers to 1. He said, and that's all you can ask, is if you're winning the turnover battle, you should expect to win football games. And he said, we're not doing that. And it was weird how he answered. Not weird, but I think the question to him was, did you sense anxiety standing on the sideline going into the fourth quarter with a lead? I think they had it wrong. I think it was 17-6 going into the fourth, not 17-3. I think they said 17-3.
Right. I think that's correct.
He said no. He said because, as you said, he didn't use the word helpless, but clearly they're about to punch it in to begin the fourth. So, you're at least probably only going to be 17-12, 17-13 going into the fourth. And it was almost like you did feel helpless. And as fans watching it, you're just sitting there going, all right, I expect them to probably punch it in here. What can our team do the rest of the way in the fourth quarter? And it seemed like the offense, which is tied to Hugh Freeze calling the plays, played more of let's try not to lose this. They went into a prevent offense. We always talk about prevent defense. They went into a prevent offense, it seemed.
Yeah, but we went after Freeze, we being the collective people that talk about Auburn, went after Freeze at the end of the Oklahoma game for not running it. And now we're mad at him for running it. So we got to pick one. One of them was the right move and one of them wasn't. We've got to figure out how to really truly evaluate that. And because I think the context is similar, where you had a big lead and then you just let it fall apart in the fourth quarter, and you kind of were responsible for both of them. Different ways. A pick six looks different than, the lack of offense that happened. And then, a really bad defensive drive by a defense that looked pretty good the majority of the game. but it's still self-inflicted stuff. And I don't want to take anything away from Missouri. I think Missouri's a good team, and a lot of people don't view them as a good team right now because of how they've played down the stretch. But I think they're a solid football team, and they took advantage of a team that can't close out and doesn't have any confidence whatsoever. Like, they've got dudes trying just as hard as we do, if not harder. So I don't want to take anything away from Missouri, but to me, like, this whole thing, it's still like, and I've said this about most of the collapses, like, it's about Auburn. Like, Auburn's got to fix this. It's not necessarily about the team on the other sideline, and that's on the head coach. And so, can you fix that mentality? Can you fix that mindset this far into the season? I don't think you can. I think at this point, like, when somebody tells you who they are over and over and over again, you need to listen. And I think that's who this Auburn team is right now, sadly.
I said over the weekend, just kind of going back and forth with my dad, and I said, it's gotten to the point, and it's not this extreme, but I do wonder if Auburn fans would be happy and if the team would be better off if those freshmen and sophomores got more time on the field, except for maybe somebody like a Hunter that's an upperclassman. But, some of the other guys that seem to be, I don't want to say going through the motions, because I know they're putting forth an effort. I mean, they're lining up and playing against SEC caliber opponents. I mean, clearly, like Payton said during that particular incident where he, went down and people wondered if it was concussion, and it turns out he just had the breath knocked out of him. He was ready to come back in. He was ready to compete. He's just not competing at a level that is winnable right now. And
can we also say something about Payton real quick that I don't think he's given enough credit for? That is a tough dude.
He is.
Like, you can say what you want about accuracy, decision-making, poise, composure, but like the toughness and him sacrificing his body for the school that we all love, like, props to him. Props to him for that. The toughness is certainly there. The guy wants it. It's just, for whatever reason, hasn't worked out. Which is
it's just not there for him. And I don't know if that's a conflict of personalities or what that may be on the sideline. But I mean, clearly, I mean, he's a fifth-year senior. I mean, somebody asked me, so what do you want out of him? I said, I want what you're supposed to get out of fifth-year seniors: mistake-free football, do good decisions at the line if you have to change the play, good decisions down the field if you're throwing into traffic. And and with that said, game plan wise, we keep hearing that we got Cam Coleman for 50-50 balls, but he got to see one target that got him a touchdown, and then the next target came with 15 seconds left in the ball game.
Doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
No.
Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. All right, what can Auburn accomplish the rest of the season? We chime in just a moment right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Ben, can you imagine wagering anywhere other than with FanDuel?
FanDuel? Nope, that's where you got to go.
Yep, that's it. Auburn, a 2.5-point dog on the road at Kentucky.
I think that's recency bias. I think that's recency bias.
Okay.
I think that's because of what took place in Missouri. That's the reason they're the dog.
You think they should be favored?
I think they should be favored. I think that they're a better team than Kentucky.
So you're taking Auburn plus 2.5?
Yes, I am.
Over under at FanDuel is 42.5. I think I'm taking the under. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of points scored.
Okay,
Saturday.
Just to be the contrarian, I'll take the over.
I love that. You can get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place that first $5 bet. That's over at FanDuel.com. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Ben Taylor.
Yes.
When you look at the rest of Auburn's schedule, I mean, obviously what they have to do in Kentucky, I think it's manageable. Weirdly, I think Auburn is going to win. I think I'm there with you on that. But when you go to Kentucky, you host Vandy, you host ULM. I know everybody's super high on Vandy right now, and they should be. Vandy's earned it, but I feel crazy saying this, and I'm not picking them to do this, but it is possible for them to win these 3 games.
No, it's totally possible for them to win 3 games. It's overcoming what you've been doing and quit playing not to lose and play to win ball games. And I think that that's going to come through a shift, is whether it be play calling or whether it be scheme or whatever they're looking to do offensively. I think that Auburn has better dudes on both sides of the football than Kentucky and Vandy, and of course ULM. I do, And if you can get 3 wins, which is a tough ask to get 3 wins in a row out of a team that's done what they've done over the last 7 weeks, 8 weeks, I guess, because you got to count the off week. That's a tough ask. But if you can get 3 wins out of them, then you never know what's going to happen at the end of the season with what you've seen across the state. So I think there's an opportunity to, and I'm staying with them beating Kentucky because you and I talked about it the last few weeks. I picked them taking 1 of 2 out of Missouri and Kentucky. So now that it's been chosen for me with the Missouri game,
yeah,
I'm staying with my pick of a win at Kentucky. And with Vanderbilt, that quarterback lives off of momentum. If the defense can quiet him a little bit, I think that Auburn will be fine against Kentucky at home.
I also think that was going to be more personal.
I agree.
For these upperclassmen, they need something to fire them up. I think that'll do it. So Auburn playing at Kentucky. There's been I think Freeze talked about it a little bit on Monday, but also I've seen other people talk about how at Lexington at night, 6:45 kick.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when did we start talking about Lexington like that when it comes to football?
I think maybe they're confused.
Are you seeing this stuff too?
I think
where
maybe
it's like, oh yeah, great atmosphere at Kroger Field. I'm like, I don't know that I've had people listen. I got a distant cousin that went and played soccer at Lexington University. He never talked about Lexington at night with football. He didn't say, hey, when we brought recruits in, we wanted to make sure they went to a night game. They went to basketball games. That's where they took them to. Right.
I mean,
yeah. So it's just been odd to see that. I think this game can be played at any point. I don't think it's going to matter a ton. It's just, what does the game plan look like, and can our guys execute it? If they can execute a decent game plan, I think they win. But that's a big if. That's a big if at this point.
Speaking of game plan, and this got brought up earlier in the week, people have talked about, you mentioned earlier in the pod that we complained about didn't run it enough, passing it too much. Now, this last week, probably ran it too much. It's not that I don't think we ran it too, because, he still had 19 carries, did Hunter. I liked him better with that bunch set in the back because they did stack the line when he was back there. So that gave him at least an extra blocker out in front where at least he can get him some yards after contact. However, Zach, Charlie Five said it best a little bit earlier with me on my show, where he said, I would like 5 years ago Freeze, not what we've seen these past 5 games in Auburn Freeze. And that is kind of letting loose. And that's going to upset some people because when he does that, there are some turnovers. But I asked you before we started recording, Zach, if I told you that we'd have 3 turnovers, but we're going to have 37 points, or we're going to have no turnovers and 17 points, which one do you take?
I would take the more points.
Yeah. I mean, I give your defense a chance. I mean, yes, you turn the ball over, but how many times have we seen it? This defense, it seems to be getting better and better throughout the game. I mean, I know they gave away, whatever it was, 20 unanswered this past week, but
defense did their job.
The defense did their job. They did their job, and Auburn did not put the football in the end zone this past week. So I'm okay with the 3 turnovers and 37 points or 45 points, as opposed to, hey, we didn't turn the ball over but one time. Yeah, well, we had 17 points. So that got us a cup of coffee, about as all that it got us. So I would like to see that type Freeze as well, kind of all over the field. Use these young guys, these outside guys, throw it deep. Bring in that 50-50 ball that you promised. If Ryan Williams across the state's getting 10 targets per game, 5 of them being 50-50 at 5'9", 5'10", then why is Cam Coleman at 6+ feet not getting 50-50 balls in not even the corner of the end zone? Just something deep down, just to keep them honest, get something deep down the sideline.
Yeah, and one of my bold predictions that I made during the bye week was KLS getting 1,000 yards. That no longer looks good. That no longer seems doable, which is a shame. So I don't know what this offensive head coach has had a hard time moving the football, and that's or scoring points. I'm going to be more specific and saying scoring points. And I just, there's a lot of frustration there, and hopefully he has the pieces that he needs to do that next year. And if that's not the case, then we've got some major questions to ask.
And there were a couple of things that I noticed this past Saturday that there were a couple of times where I think the right play call was called, where it looked like Payton was going to drop back and maybe hit somebody either on, and it's almost like the line just had a bad snap that particular snap and let people through or let too much penetration get back there. So they were in Thorne's face and he couldn't do anything with it. And then when he did have time, credit Missouri's defense, they had the receivers covered up. And as I said, we as fans have got to think back and say, okay, we can't complain about both. So when those receivers are covered up, if he's going to throw the 50-50 to KLS, or he's going to throw the 50-50 to Cam or to Malcolm Simmons, and it gets intercepted, 30 yards down the field, then we just got to live with that. I mean, that's something we're going to have to live with, because I think in order to open up the defense and in order to open up the offense, that's going to have to take place over the next couple of games.
Yeah.
And I think they have an opportunity to do that against the two teams they're going to be playing in Kentucky and Vandy over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. Ben, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
You can go to aunetwork.com and click on the WANI logo, and then that way you can stream it. We do sports each and every morning on Auburn Opelika this morning, 6 to 9 in the Auburn Opelika area on 98.7 FM, 1400 AM.
Yeah, please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.